Well, today we have a joint service of Beatrice Mennonite and First Mennonite. Glad everyone has showed up this morning for a cool morning, obviously. Today we'll be having Wayne Stucky, who is with Mennonite Disaster Service, Region 3. That's us. The best region, is what I've been told. And he's going to be sharing this morning and also for the message today. So we're glad to have Wayne here. Wayne comes from Topeka, but I think originally from Moundridge. A Wildcat, yeah. They win everything. That's like, you thought you did, yeah. All right, well, welcome, Wayne.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm glad to be here. And for you folks over there, if you might want to scoot a little bit more this way, because I'll probably be in your view. But I'd like to start out with a little video here this morning.
Without him, we couldn't do anything. He would have brought y'all over here. So I give him the glory.
Good Lord has brought us the right people this week again. He always does. Amazes me.
I have learned that when the Mennonites are showing up on the scene, number one, it means you had a disaster, and number two, it means work's going to get done. I always enjoy their spirit, I enjoy their love for their fellow man, and always their willingness to try to accomplish any and every task and do it in a way that not only is professional, but honors God with it.
We generally work with those that have disabilities or they have no insurance, no resources at this point, nobody to fall back on.
Building those relationships and that sense of community, it's much more than just swinging a hammer and painting some trim.
It's a beautiful day. And I thank y'all, every one of you, for all that you've done. Mennonite Disaster Service. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Essie Westbrook, a young lady with this big smile saying thank you, thank you, thank you. She was one of our first clients that we worked for her in Detroit in the flood recovery response there. So she just did a wonderful job on that video, and I like to show that pretty much everywhere I go. Well, good morning again, and thank you for allowing me and my wife, Carol. I'm not sure, where are you at, Carol? Oh, you're right there in front, all right. She's my cohort in crime here, so to speak, and we do this job together. We have been very richly blessed in our careers, and we've been retired now since 2013, and we just pretty much slipped right into the role of MDS. We've been doing a lot of recovery prior to that as well, and so we just wanted to give back a lot of the blessings that God has given us as well. We work very closely with Jeff Kohler, who is from Elaria, Kansas. I mean, we all come kind of from that part of the country, don't we? And he is the region operations coordinator, and he and I work closely. He works with the regions to the west of the Mississippi, so he goes all the way to the California coast. We have two offices. We have one in Littis, Pennsylvania. Kevin King is our executive director there, and he's the executive director for all of MDS, actually. And then we have a Canadian office in Winnipeg, and Ross Penner is the director of operations there. For MDS Canada, we call also Region 5. But our vision and our mission really quite defines who we are. and what we do. Our vision says to inspire and equip every Anabaptist congregation to respond in Christian love with volunteers to those affected by disaster. And our mission is, the Mennonite Disaster Service is a volunteer network of Anabaptist churches that responds in Christian love to those affected by disasters in Canada and the United States. While the main focus is on cleanup, repairing, and rebuilding homes, this service touches lives, nurtures hope, faith, and wholeness. MDS programs are funded by contributors, and we try and assist homeowners that are really in need. We assist the primary homeowners that are the homeowners of the property that we're dealing with. We don't deal with renters. We help the uninsured, the underinsured, the elderly, and basically anyone who does not have the means to rebuild their home and get back into their home after a disaster. So MDS volunteers, we provide the skill and the labor to respond and rebuild and restore. And of course, you don't have to be Mennonite to volunteer for MDS. There's really no other place where our faith boundaries melt away faster than in disaster recovery. Someone once said, if we got more volunteers on the roof, maybe we could get them to the common communion table. We were founded in 1950 by a Sunday school class near Heston, Kansas. And these folks in this class were returning from service, and they wanted to continue to help individuals who were experiencing difficulty and had gone through a disaster such as a tornado, whatever. And so about 45 years, we were operating under the committee, MCC, Mennonite Central Committee. And then in the mid-90s, MDS and MCC cut their ties and we each went our separate ways. So MDS then became an independent, standalone organization. We're not tied to any conference, we're not tied to any church. And we also agreed at that time, then, when we cut the ties, that MCC would do the recovery and rebuilding internationally, and MDS would deal basically with the local United States and Canada. So that's how we respond to the disasters now. Over time, we have broken into 5 regions. We are Region 3. We're right down the middle here. We've got 1, 2, 3, and 4 across the country in the U.S., and all of Canada is Region 5. So we represent 14 states. There are 13 units in our Region 3. And, you know, we really depend on our grassroots and leadership from each congregation. So it's very important that you provide our support in many, many, many different ways. Here's a little bit of how we spend our dollars. It's hard to read, I'm sure, from that area, but you know, MDS does not really fund the materials, the cost for materials to rebuild. We have to partner with our other partner organizations, such as the United Methodist, the Salvation Army, the Lutherans, and Samaritan's Purse. Those folks usually fund the materials for us, and we provide the labor to do that, which really gives us an opportunity to leverage the amount of investment that goes into this recovery and rebuilding projects that we do. Normally, our homes that we build cost anywhere between $50,000 to $70,000, depends on what part of the country you're in. So for that kind of an investment from the contributions of our faith-based partners, and then we give the labor, that really does leverage that to bring a person back home. And you can see that we have over 5,000 volunteers last year in 2017. We haven't closed 2018 yet. That served over 32,000 volunteer days. And we served over 832 clients. We actually built 66 new homes, and the bottom line on that says 17 bridges. We are actually in the bridge building business in West Virginia. We built 17 of them in 17, and I think our total bridges now that we've built are up to around 50, a little bit over 50. And these are personal access bridges that were washed out in the flood, and these folks couldn't get from the road to their house. They always had to cross the creek that was there. And so that's been a fun and really neat project as well. This one's a little bit hard to read. Sometimes you'll have to cock your head a little bit there, but this shows a little bit of how our structure is. Really the people that make up MDS are the church contact people in our churches. And our church contact people really communicate with the rest of the units and the regions and so forth. They are our key liaison to the churches, so we expect them to communicate with the churches, bring calls for volunteers, MDS updates and so forth. And then our churches, of course, those people in the pew are the volunteers. Again, they are the most important people, and without them, we wouldn't be MDS. And so they provide leadership volunteers for us. They provide the volunteers financial, the contributions come from our churches as well, and the prayers. And you know, some people say, well, I really don't have that much money. Every little penny counts, and those prayers go a long way as well. And then we kind of go communicate back and forth between units. We have over 52 units across the all 5 regions. And then the regions, we had 5, and by national, that's the LIDIT's office. And then we have a board of directors and a board of delegates. The board of directors does a lot of the, actually the operational side, and the board of delegates then does the liaison basically between the churches and the conference that support MDS. There's over 30, well, there's 30 delegates that sit on that board. So they represent the Mennonite Brethren Church, the MCUSA, the Groffdale Conference, all kinds of different conferences that we have. So that gives you kind of a picture of how that all works. But the left side is the most important side of that whole slide. Here are the programs that we have in MDS. We have the short-term and summer youth programs, and those are basically a week long. The short-term volunteers come down on a Sunday evening, and we give them a little bit of orientation, find out what they can do, and then they go to work Monday morning and return home then on either Friday evening or Saturday, depends on how far away they were going. Our long-term programs are what we call our leadership programs. When you become a long-term volunteer, you are expected to work 4 weeks or more. I'll get into some of that here in a minute, but those are our key people. Without those long-term program people, we wouldn't be able to have the number of projects that we do have, because they provide the continuity on the projects for all the weekly folks that come through. We also have an RV program. So if you have a camper or motorhome, we have programs that you can come and work. Those are people who usually like to stay in their own home, something they're comfortable with, and so that's why they like to do the RV programs. They have a great schedule. They don't work the full 8-hour day. They work 6 hours a day, and they work 4 days a week. So they're usually more mature folks of the MDS volunteers, I guess you'd say, and but they really have a good time together. I've been on a couple of, visited a couple of RV programs, and they're a great group. Then we have a Pastors to Project program. That is something that very few people, when we talk about this in churches, realize that we have a program where we will pay for your pastor or the pastors of the church to pay their expenses, to get down to a project, have them work for the week and pay their expenses back. That has been really a good program for the pastors that have done that. It gives them a first-hand experience of what goes on the project and the relationships that are built, and they come back excited just like the volunteers, and it rubs off on the congregation then as well. Partnership Home Project, PHP homes. Those are homes that the shell is built in a parking lot. It might be one church doing it. It could be multiple churches doing this. But it also gives a opportunity for the folks in the congregation who cannot go for a week at a time. Maybe their job doesn't allow them. Maybe they're physically not able to work the full week. So what they do is they come and they swing the hammer for a couple hours in the evening, and they put up the house. Then they take it back down, load it on a truck, and take it out to the work site, and then finish building it there at the work site. So it gives a lot of opportunity for everybody in the congregation to participate, from the children up to the seniors as well. We also have a disaster management program. It's a curriculum at Heston College, and it's a 2-year program. I think this year we had 11 students going through that program at this time. So once they get their disaster management degree, they can usually go out and find a job in a disaster management area, not necessarily with MDS, although I think we have 2 or 3 graduates from this program working with MDS at this time. We have what we call our 4 pillars. These are things that we have to have in place in order to do a project. If any one of these pillars are not there, we usually aren't going to be at that project very long. We have to have, of course, the volunteers. They're very key. They're the ones that really do the work. We provide accommodations. So when you come, we'll have a place for you to sleep. We'll have showers for you to clean up on every day, and we hope you do that, because otherwise the week could get really long. And we have cooks that cook your meals for you, and so all of that accommodations takes, that's very key right there. One of the things that we have found in the accommodations that we're finding now is that when people ask, you know, are we going to be staying in the trailers, or do you have bunk houses for us or whatever, and we do all of that, but the main thing they ask is, do you have Wi-Fi? That was the whole key right there. You got to have Wi-Fi today. We got to have meaningful work. In other words, we got to have work there for the volunteers. When they come to the project site, they want to be working. They want to be building something. They want to help move this home to the finish point where they can get back home. When we set up a large project, we like to have anywhere from 4 to 6 new homes to build, or a significant amount of rebuilding that needs to be done. It just takes that much. It's a big effort for us to move all of the trailers, the trucks, the vans that we use, the big tool trailers that we have. So we like to have a good size amount of meaningful work in order to be able to move everything and get it all set up. And then the funding, we talked about that a little bit. We don't provide the funding for the materials. The long-term recovery groups are usually community folks that get together after the disaster occurred, and they do all of the case management for us. They determine who is qualified for the home and the help that they're going to get. So we work very closely with them, and they give us the clients, and then we, of course, and they get the funding as well. And some of that funding is done from FEMA, some of that is done from the local area, some is done through, of course, the Methodists and Salvation Army, Red Cross, and so forth. So those all have to be in place in order for us to provide a meaningful experience for our volunteers. I talked a little bit about project leadership, and these are some of the people that we really need. We need good project directors, those that can manage a project, They don't necessarily have to have the building experience. I have absolutely no building experience, but have been project director 2 or 3 times. I can be on the phone like that young man there and can manage a project, but God always sends the right people when I need them. I know Marv came down and he was the right person at the right time for that week. We need good office managers. Carol and I we share our project director. She's an office manager to do the book work that needs to be done. We need good crew leaders. We need good cooks. So if any of you have some of this experience or skill set, hey, we'd sure like to have you get signed up to work for us. And then of course the volunteers. And once you put some project in front of a volunteer, it's amazing what they can do. And they'll come and they'll say Sunday evening in orientation, I really can't do very much. I don't know how to do drywall. I don't know how to do the mudding. And some of them say, well, you know, I'm pretty old. I don't know what I can do for you. And I say, don't worry about that. I got a job for you to do, and I have been able to keep everybody busy. But we'll train you. You know, if you don't have that skill set, we'll take a little bit of time and show you how to do things as well. I can show you how not to do mudding, but that's always the thing. Okay, here are some typical new homes that we build. We build 2 and 3 bedroom homes, either 1 or 2 baths. They're normally anywhere from 900 to 1,100 square feet. We have these homes all designed, and when we take and go down for the building permits, we just take our plans with us, and they're usually accepted. There are some areas that really takes a little bit of time to get it through. One was in Boulder, Colorado. They were pretty strong in the codes. And then California is also another place where we really have issues with building codes. But the homes are built very strong, 2x6s on the walls, very energy efficient, and we build them to withstand 140 mile an hour winds as well. So I don't know if you remember 2 weeks ago now, maybe 3 weeks ago, we were in Saipan for about 2 years building homes, and Saipan just got hit again with another big typhoon, and they showed a picture of the MDS house that was still standing. That was pretty cool. We build 1 levels. We really don't go make basements. We put them on slabs or crawl spaces. So that's really our typical home. Binational led projects, these are the big projects. We usually have 6 to 8 leaderships on a project. We can handle, depending on the accommodations that we find, 15 to 20 weekly volunteers, and we have the tool trailers. We provide all the tools, the vans, and the pickups. You know, the accommodations, I maybe should add too, they come in all different shapes and sizes. We'll be in churches, church basements. We'll be in schools. We've been in schools before. We've been in personal homes. So it can vary all across the board as to where we stay. Here are some of the projects that we're doing this fall and this winter. The current projects are going down the side there of Pine Ridge, South Dakota. We got 4 of them going in Texas, and 1 in British Columbia, Puerto Rico, of course. We've got projects going there, Fort Myers, Florida, and we're still building bridges as long as the money comes in to build the bridges. Those bridges range anywhere from 30 feet. The biggest one we put in was right at 100 feet. So they're pretty good size personal access bridges, that's what we call them. And in California, South Carolina, you know, Florence, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Hurricane 4 come through in the last 14 months. There's just been a lot of damage across this country, and so we need a lot of help. So I'd suggest you look at the MDS website for where we're at and some more information about MDS. We typically run 10 to 12 traditional projects and 2 to 3 RV projects, so you can see we're pretty well going according to that. However, I'm sure we'll probably add some yet because of Florence and Michael, the 2 hurricanes that came in. We also have unit and region projects. So in addition to those 10 to 12 units, like the Nebraska unit, the Iowa unit, Kansas unit will have projects of their own. Sometimes they're building a new home. Sometimes they're doing a project home build. Sometimes they're just repairing a roof and so forth. Right now we've got 37 of those projects going. So across all of MDS, we've been really busy, and we are keeping busy. That's almost 50 projects. Our seasons are basically the winter, the fall, and the spring. In the summertime, we kind of wind down because that has been our cycle. We have always been supported by the agricultural community. So they are really busy in the summertime, you know, getting the crops out and so forth. So it's been very difficult to bring volunteers into projects and have them be there. So we usually wind down in the summertime. We do have our youth projects. We'll try and have 2 youth projects going each summer in different regions. We had Pine Ridge was a youth project this last year, and it looks like that might become another project, youth project again next year. One of the things that concerns me as a board member of MDS is how are we going to continue on? How are we going to continue this service? How are we going to continue working for God, being his hands and feet of Jesus? Because our agricultural folks are, well, they're diminishing. And 20 years ago, or actually I guess it was in the 90s as this research was done, we had like 40% of Mennonites were agricultural based, and today they're only 18%. So that means that our shift in dynamics and demographics is shifting to the professional, where you work for somebody, and it becomes a little bit more difficult. You can't just all of a sudden go into your boss and say, oh, by the way, Hurricane Michael hit in Florida and I'm going to go down and clean up for a week. Is that okay? And you know, you can't drop what you're doing in that kind of environment like the farmers could in the winter and the fall.